Welcome to Italy, friends. I am so excited to be sharing this vlog with you. Italy was one of our favorite places that we visited on our trip. We arrived into Italy at a very early hour on Monday morning. We caught a taxi from the airport to our hotel. The taxi driver was going an incredible speed. It was definitely an amazing way to start our experience of Italy. But we arrived at our hotel at about 2 a.m. in the morning. We stayed at the Hoxton, which is just outside of the city center of Rome, but would highly recommend. It was a beautiful hotel. When we woke up that morning, we took ourselves to the Colosseum, and this was our first tourist attraction that we did in Rome, and we had an absolute blast. We just did a self-guided tour. We didn't join any tour groups. We did a self-guided tour, and we also bought a ticket that got us onto the arena floor, which was such a cool experience. Andy and I kept remarking to each other that we were looking at ancient Rome, which we just could not believe. It was so cool. We loved exploring the Colosseum and seeing all of the different sites of this ancient building. And then after the Colosseum, we took ourselves over to the Roman Forum, which is just next to the Colosseum. At the Roman Forum, it's basically like a really big archaeological site that they've dug up, and you can walk through, you can see the buildings that used to be there and just explore what ancient Rome would have been like. We made our way also up to the top of Palpatine Hill, which kind of looks over the Roman Forum. And that was such a cool experience. Again, Andy and I kept remarking to each other, we're looking at ancient Rome. After all of that, we took ourselves to lunch for our first Italian lunch, or first Italian dish of pasta and wine. And oh my goodness, friends, it was the most delicious bowl of pasta or plate of pasta I've had in my life. It was so good. That evening, we joined a night bike tour. We ended up being the only ones on the tour, so we got a private tour around Rome. We saw all the big sites. We started at Piazza Navona, which is what we're looking at now, and we learned all about the Egyptian obelisks, which Rome stole from Egypt, so they are scattered all around Rome. We then rode over to the Pantheon and had a look at that. It was just a magnificent building. I would have loved to have seen it when it had all of its gold and marble all over it back in the day. We rode over to the Trevi Fountain, and this was so cool to see. We loved hearing all of the facts and information about it. We also grabbed some coins because apparently left hand over the right shoulder, throw it in the fountain and you will return to Rome. So we decided, yes, we definitely want to return to Rome. So we threw our coin into the fountain. From there, we rode over to the Spanish Steps, which was very busy, but really cool to see. Again, spot the Egyptian obelisks. And then to finish our tour, we rode over to this building. I can't remember what it is called. I think it is something to do with the military. Our tour guide said Italians call it the wedding cake because it is so new and doesn't look like anything else in Italy. On day 2, we took ourselves over to the Vatican City. The Vatican was so busy. If you are going to the Vatican, I would highly recommend you get there early in the morning. I think we waited an hour and a half in line to get into the Basilica. It is free to get into the Basilica, but it just takes an awfully long time. The Basilica was the last church on our list of palaces and churches that we had seen around Europe, and it definitely did not disappoint. We loved seeing the mosaics and the artworks in this church. Also, the altar was just fascinating. I mean, we've learnt from our tour the night before that a lot of the things in the Vatican and around Italy had been recycled and repurposed from ancient monuments or ancient churches or different things like that. So it was very fascinating to actually see that. Also, the fact that Peter's bones that we're looking at now, the disciple Peter, is apparently there in the Vatican. So that was really fascinating to see as well. We also went, after St. Peter's Basilica, went into the Sistine Chapel, into the Vatican museums. It was incredibly busy, so we kind of just tried to get in quickly and get out, but it was a really amazing thing to see. We then hopped on our Lime scooters and scooted over to the Pantheon. And the fascinating thing about the Pantheon is that there is a hole in the roof. So if it is raining outside, it is also raining inside the Pantheon. It was a really fascinating building, and I'm glad we got to go in. There is also a gelato shop just around the corner from the Pantheon that sells like 150 different flavors of gelato. So you bet your bottom dollar we also went there. Day 3 saw us take a trip down to the Amalfi Coast. This was a really big day. We were up at like 4 a.m. in the morning to get to the train station, to get our train from Rome to Naples, and then from Naples to Sorrento, to be in Sorrento by 9 o'clock, to get on this boat to do a tour out to the island of Capri. We had such a fantastic day. The train ride was definitely worth it. The only thing Andy and I said is that we wished we could have spent more than a day down at the Amalfi Coast, but it was definitely a great day trip. The thing we could not get over was the fact that Mount Vesuvius was just hanging out on the edge of the water. Like, we had heard stories about it growing up, stories about Pompeii and the volcano, and we couldn't quite believe that it was so close to the water and actually seeing it with our own eyes. It was kind of a bucket list moment, I guess. We didn't get to go to Pompeii, so that is still on the bucket list. The tour guides then took us to all of the little grottos that you can go and see. We didn't actually go inside any of the grottos because everyone on the boat wanted to do lots of swimming in the Mediterranean, which was such a cool experience. We spent hours swimming in the water, hanging out and just enjoying the sunshine and the warm water. We then docked in Capri. We grabbed the most delicious sandwich I've ever had in my life. It was like a baguette with mozzarella cheese, tomato, olive oil. It was delicious. And we just spent time chilling out in the beach club before we got back on the boat and sailed back to the island of Sorrento. Once we got back to Sorrento, we did a little bit of shopping, did a little bit of sightseeing, and then had some dinner before we hopped on the train back to Naples, and then Naples back to Rome. Our last day in Rome saw us do a pasta making class with Nonna. This was another Airbnb experience that I had booked, and I was so glad that we finished with this experience. It was just the most wonderful way to finish our Italian holiday. So this town is about a 30-minute train ride outside of Rome. And when we got to this town, our tour guide picked us up. She took us into the city to explore, showed us the castle, showed us the town, took us around a little bit before we made it to Nonna's house. At Nonna's house, she greeted us with wine, she greeted us with bruschetta and some other delicious Italian treats. And then we got into the pasta making. We made 2 different types of pasta. We made ravioli and we made bow ties, and then Nonna made the fettuccine. Once we had made the pasta, Nonna took that pasta away and then cooked up the pasta and all of the different sauces and served it to us, and it was just so delicious. Fresh pasta, homemade sauces, wine, delicious. We then finished our meal with some traditional homemade tiramisu, and it was probably the best meal that I've ever had in my life. It was so good. And just the whole experience of being in an Italian village, in an Italian home with Nonna, eating real Italian food was just something that we'll never forget. We then went back to Rome. We had our last meal of pasta and pizza, a walk along the river, some gelato to finish, and we just had the most wonderful time in Italy. Thank you so much for watching, friends. This is the end of the travel series, but if you haven't watched the London and Paris vlogs, go and watch them because, in my opinion, they are super fun to watch. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.